Hi everyone, trust you all are doing well. So what we're going to do in this one is we're going to set up our post model and we're going to set up our post migration. Right? In order to get there, let's go to App, Models, and you will see we've got our post model right there that we created. So let's set it up. Right, so the first thing we're going to do in here is we're just going to create a constant, and this will be a table, and we're going to set basically to the posts table right here. The post right here refers to our migration, this post right here. Okay, so let's do a protected table, and we're going to set that to basically be the self table like this. Right, so the other field that we're going to require in here is a protected fillable, and this will be for our mess assignment. Okay, so obviously you need a couple of fields in here. We need the title, the body, and all that kind of stuff. So let me quickly fill that in. So the first one is the title, second one is the body. Okay, and then we're going to have a slug. Okay, and then we're going to have a cover image. Okay, and then we're going to have a published add date field. Now the published add date field, what we're going to do is we're going to allow the users to basically schedule their posts. Okay, the next thing that we want to add in here is the type. Okay, so we're going to have two types. We're going to have a standard post that's for free members, and we're going to have a premium post for obviously subscription users. Right, so for paid members. Okay, the next we've got a published ad, and the other thing that I want to do is I want to add a photo credit text. Okay, and the other one is photo credit links. All right. Now what this will do is it will, when we save it in a database, every post. Okay, let me quickly make an example. Right, so right here in this page right here, when we show in latest post, we're not obviously going to show any links to attribution to the image. So, but when we go to a single right here, what we can do is we can, if the authors or whoever they create the post, they might use a free stock library to get the images. And if they want to assign an attribute to that user, we can basically add underneath the post, basically link basically to that image right there. Okay, so that's totally optional, and if you want to add that, but if you're the only author, you can or cannot do that. Okay, it's up to you. Right, so that's the fields we're going to add in there. Okay, don't links, I'll just add photo credit link. All right, the next one that we want to do is we want to add a protected with statement in here. All right, this is basically for the relationships that we're going to set up between the comments and the tag. All right, we obviously haven't created that yet. I'm just going to set that to an empty array. Okay, so when, let's say we load a post. Okay, so we're going to do a with statement, and we're going to say with the tags, and then we're going to add some extra things that we want to add in there. All right, so what this will do is basically eager load all the posts with the tags, with its relationships. Now, but when we do this actually in the model, it will automatically eager load. Let me just put the eager load the relationships. Okay, so that we can also avoid the n+1 problem. Instead of 1,000, basically get every post and just 1,000 relationship and extra relationship and things like that. But the n+1 problem is a lesson on its own, but I just wanted to say this to eager load, okay, with the relationship. The next one that we want to do is we're going to do a protected dates. Our reason why I'm just doing the protected dates, this has been deprecated, not to use it anymore. So what protected dates used to do for us, because you see I've got a published at field right here, and what I want to do is I want to, when we get the data from the database, I want it to be cast to basically a Carbon instance. All right. So in order for us to actually mutate the date using Carbon, all right, out of the box. Okay. So that's what this is basically going to do for us. But now this is being deprecated. We mustn't use it anymore. There's another property that we can do the same thing, and it's called cast, like this. All right, and there's a couple of fields that we can add in here. So this one will basically be set to date time. Okay, so in order to create a carbon instance of that. So if you want to read more about these properties, let me just quickly show you. Right, we got mutators and accessors. This is not what I'm looking for. All right, this attribute casting. All right, so we can, whatever values we can set them to an array. Let me make it a little bit bigger. We can set them to array, date time. Date time is basically like setting a cast, okay, in this case, to a carbon instance, all these kind of things. You want to read more about them, go just type in at the top right here, just type in casts. All right, and then you click the first one right there. Okay, so if you want to read more about it. Right, so if you look at later this lesson, maybe in a while from now, just remember we're using the version 8, so this might be updated and changed. I don't know. Okay, so let's move on. So we got our table fillable, and the next thing that I want to do is I want to create a custom cast. You will see I've got a little folder created right here called cast. So what I will do is I will create a custom title cast. For some it might be a little bit of overkill, but let's say we got different authors and we don't check if the letters are capitalized, whatever the case may be, because everyone has got a different style, right? Now, in this case, let's say all the titles. Now, the other author might think that she needs to, or he needs to capitalize all the letters for the titles, and they want to be able to do that. The other one save it as basically be every second letter is capitalized, or every letter is basically capitalized, the whole thing. So these will all be uppercase. So that won't be very good for the former. So I kind of want a uniform look. So if you're the only author, you're obviously not going to be worried about it, because you will make sure you type it however you want to do it. But in this case, what I want to do is whenever we do things in a database, when we set something in a database, I want to make sure that we set it all in lowercase. And when we get it from the database with an accessor, basically, a mutator is mutating, basically setting in the database, and accessor basically getting something from the database. Okay, so when we get it from the database, we just want to make sure that first letter is capitalized. Okay, so let's do that. All right, so what you want to do, you want to create a cast folder. So inside that, we just want to create a new file, and we're going to call that title cast, like this, .php. Right, so let's quickly create PHP tags, and we're just going to namespace that to app/cast, like this. Okay, and then we're just going to create a class, and this is going to be the title cast, like this, and it's going to implement basically what contract does it implement. It's going to do the cast attributes. Okay, so just make sure you eliminate contracts, database, eloquent, cast attributes. That one right there. All right, now as you can see, if we highlight over it, let's just quickly do this. Okay, as you can see, the app cast title does not implement the get and set method. All right, so the get is basically accessor, all right, in Laravel under the documentation, and a get set method is basically the mutator. But let's quickly create those two methods. So I'm going to get a set, and the other one is going to be a get method. Right. So this is when we save it in the database, and this is when we get it from the database. Okay. So obviously, as you can see, there's attributes, arguments that we're not actually filling in here. So let's quickly go to this cast attribute. Right, now, as you can see, this is basically the interface that we're implementing. So as you can see, we need to add these arguments inside our methods right there. Okay, so that will go away. So what I want to do is I want to set it to lowercase when we save it in a database. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a return a string. And now what I would do to lowercase, and I will just add the value. Right, so basically when we save it in a database, let me just make sure I import the eliminate support string. Just make sure you import it at the top. When we save it in the database, we just want to make sure we save it in lowercase. Okay. So when we get it from the database, I want to make sure the uppercase first. Okay. That needs to be all right. So what we do is we uppercase basically the first letter, right, when we get it from the database. So in Laravel, this is called the accessor, and this is going to be called a mutator. Set when we save it in a database, we set it, and we get it from the database, we get it. All right. So that's it. So what we want to do now that we're not finished yet, so let's go back to our post class right here, and in the cast property right here, we're just going to do the title. And we're going to, whenever we're going to get the title, we're going to use the title cast class like this. Okay, that's it. Okay. So let's quickly create additional properties right here. This one is going to be the ID, and this will be an integer. Okay. So someone might ask, why didn't we use a get and set methods inside here? So basically, I will get to that in a second. Let me explain it while we're on the subject. So public function, we could have done set title attribute. We could have done it like this. There's nothing wrong. We add the value. And we could have done the same thing. And instead of that, we can just do a get as well. Get title attribute. And we could have done it like this. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. Then we don't have to do it like this. But the problem is, we're going to have so many methods in here, we're going to clutter it up very, very quickly. And for me, this just looks a little bit neater, and I can actually go to the class itself, and I can change whatever I want in here. Okay. Separating the concerns. Okay. So return. And what I can do as well is if something else is using a title, I can use that very same, basically, cast in that model. Right, so if I add later on videos or whatever the case may be, or articles, I can make sure if they have a title class inside, basically, let's say this might be, my brain can't think right now, threads, right? The thread's got a title, and then we can use that same cast as well to make sure it does the same thing. Okay. So I don't have to redo this. I can reuse it wherever. Right, so let's carry on. So this ID like this. Okay, so I'm just going to do a couple all these properties right here, and I'll see you after this. Right, there is obviously a field that I want you guys to actually also add to your methods, and it's called an excerpt. Now this basically, let me just show you again. If we go to our main post right here, you will see we don't get the whole blog post. We don't get the whole body. We only get a small snippet of that post right there. And this is basically the excerpt that we will use to display the latest post right there. Okay. So this can be 100 characters, 200 characters, or 250 characters. It all depends on you. All right. In order to do that, it's going to be an integer, and it's going to be a limit. And we're going to set that to, in my case, I'm just going to make it 250 characters. I'm just going to do a string. And what we're going to do is we're going to return string limit. Right, just make sure you import this at the top. Eliminate support string. And then what we want to do, just remember when we're going to use a WYSIWYG editor to actually save the post in the database. So this body will have elements in it like div elements, header elements, heading type, and all that kind of stuff. All right, so what I want to do, I want to strip the tags, okay? And then I want to do this body, okay? And then I want to add the limit like this. Okay. So when we get it from the database, we strip the tags and then we just add how many do we want in there. Okay. So that's it. So we add another one, public, and this is going to be the cover image. This is just going to be a string. Just remember, when we save the image in the database, we don't actually save the image in the database. We just save in the path to that image in the database. Okay, return this cover image. This. All right. Now, in this case, let me just explain that a little bit better. Right, we got a cover image right here. Now, that image will basically have a path to the storage, and we're going to create a symlink between the storage and the public folder. Right, so when we save it in here, there's going to be a symlink between the public folder and there. Now, that path to that storage folder, that's the path that we will save basically in our cover image table inside the database. Right. So the next thing that I want to do is whenever we call on basically the published at field right there, right? If you can look at the date format right here, okay? Since we want a carbon instance, we can actually set how we want the date to come back from the database, okay? So we can set it to this format, but I'm not going to do it in this case. But if you want to do it, you can do it right here. So we can do a public function, because the reason for that is we need to do calculations to check the published at date against the current time. So just leave it as such. Okay. So we don't need to add that. Right. So the next thing that we want to do is let's set up our post table. Okay, so migration file. So the first one is going to be a table, and this is going to be a string. And this is for our title. You can type the type. The second one, this one will be also, this will be a text. Okay, this will be for the body. And the other one will be for the slug when we save the slug. Okay, so this will be a string. And this will be a slug. Okay, and then we're going to have the cover image, and this is going to be a string as well. Just remember, we're not saving the image itself in the database, we're just saving the path to that image. Okay. The next thing is we got our, let me just make sure, got our title, body, slug, cover image, published at date. So let's just do a timestamp for that. This will be published at field. Okay. Next one. This will be for strings. This will be photo. Credit. Is it with me? Text. And this field can be nullable. Okay, so if they don't want to add attributions, where nobody's forced to, but if they do want to add it, they can. All right, and we're going to have another field in here. This will basically determine if the post is basically premium. So this is the type. Okay, so if it's a premium post or a standard post. Okay, so let's just add that in an array. Standard and premium. Okay, but with the default, what we're going to do, the default is basically going to be the standard post. So whenever a user creates a post, it will be a standard post unless we specify it to be premium. Okay. So we got our title, body. Let me just make sure I got everything in there. All right, so everything is in there. Okay. So these two fields obviously nullable. And then we got our standard. So if we want to check what type of the post is, so that we can restrict the user from actually viewing that post. Okay. All right, so that's it for me, guys. If you like the video, please give it a like. Sorry that it's a little bit longer because there's a little bit more things that we have to do in here. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.